the October 1st, 2018 meeting of the MSAD 51 Board of Directors. Our first item for action tonight will be to approve the minutes from the September 17th meeting. So I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Oh, I wasn't here. I don't think I can vote.
All right, so we have no recognition tonight, so we'll be jumping right into our presentations. And the first thing we have for that is a field trip request for the Quebec trip from Kim McDonald.
Good evening.
Hi.
Hello. So do you want me to present the trip? Is that, or do you have all the information about it? So this is the first time that this trip will be happening at this time of the year. We have, in 2 weeks, we will have 20 students from France, from Bar, France, coming for our third exchange program. And last winter, there was kind of talk like, well, what if there were a weekend in Quebec? It's only 5 hours away. They're going to spend the first few days before they're leaving on the 10th. They'll spend the first few days in New York City. They'll be getting here on the 13th of October. And we'll organize a couple field trips. We usually do an Augusta field trip and a Bowdoin and Bath field trip. And so I said, well, maybe we can do a Quebec field trip, but it would have to be, we'd have to make sure that all the parents were on board. Our host parents were on board for this. So I spoke with them in June, and it was a unanimous vote to say, yes, let's try to organize a trip to Quebec. So I'm using Jump Street Tours, which I have used in the past. They provide a great itinerary, a very packed itinerary, leaving on Friday, October 19th, and returning on Sunday, October 21st. On the third page, there, what's included: round-trip transportation from via coach, a tour leader the entire time, 24/7. Accommodations. The accommodations are a little bit outside of the city, which is nice because there's actually there's private security guard monitoring the hallways at night, and we're just going there to sleep. So there's not going to be too much of a temptation for students to leave anyway. There's really nothing to do at that part of the city. It's actually in Laval. And there's $25 million in liability protection for teachers and chaperones. And they were able to, the way they were able to organize it, which worked out really well for all of us involved, was they had a portal on which all the French students all of their parents had to approve and make sure that they were all in support as well. They could actually pay through that portal. So no money. I have not had to handle any collecting of money for this Quebec trip, and so that really helped with the managing of the finances. So this proposal went to the parents in June, and I then received the final information June 21st. So my apology for not getting this to the board during the summer, but I did, fill out the paperwork in September. It is 3 weeks away, so I would normally do this much farther in advance than this.
Any
Some
questions?
No questions. I think this is just I like that you embraced, the thought of our international community. I mean, that we could do here with Canada. I love that you're linking it in. I understand that it's a little time sensitive, but that's okay because it's a great, you're here now. I support it. I think it will be really enriching, and so I appreciate all your effort and your enthusiasm, and I also can really get the sense of you, you making sure that all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed, so I appreciate it. I think it's really an exciting opportunity for the students.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm looking at your itinerary. It
Yeah.
does look spectacular.
It
They're-
does, yeah,
they're
it
fortunate to be
does.
able to see all of those places.
Yes,
Looks exciting.
it is. Thank you.
Okay, can I just add?
Yeah, Margot?
Kim, you said that 20 French students will be going, 20 of your students or 20 of the visiting students?
20 of our visiting students and 19 of our Greeley High School students.
right.
And as far as adult supervision goes, we'll have the new French teacher, Evan Menois, and I, and the 3 French teachers from France, and 5 parents as well. So we'll have 7 adults chaperoning our 19 students and 3 French teachers chaperoning their 20 French students.
And I feel like we see a Quebec field trip come once a year. So is this in addition to, or is this just the usual Quebec trip, different time of year?
So I'll be up here again for the annual senior French 5
Great.
Or French 4, but senior trip happening hopefully this year in March.
Okay,
So I'll put one forward on that,
okay, great.
a field trip request.
All right, any more discussion, questions? Do I have a motion to approve the field trip to Quebec as presented?
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all in favor? All right, and next we'll move on to our program and
Thank you.
curriculum highlights, site improvement plans.
Good evening. Sally and I are actually going to present together because we share the SIP for the school improvement plan and wanted to, I'm going to hit the first couple and Sally will hit the last 3, and certainly we're happy for any questions. So the first couple areas really focus on systems of supports for our learners. The first one being around working with our regular education staff to support students who need English language learner, gifted and talented, IEP 504, or RTI services, and making sure that our educators have the resources and training that they need to develop interventions that are appropriate for any student, no matter what their plan is, and that students don't need to have an IEP in order to access those same services that they may have previously gotten from a special educator. The second area follows a similar thread, but is really around our non-categorical supports for learners and embracing academic services and instructional support around working with our buildings to increase our non-categorical supports in the areas of reading, writing, math, and/or behavior, and really working with the schools to ensure that there's at least one non-categorical structure or support in place, meaning that our learners, regardless of what plan they have resources in order to match their learning style. So that might be that there's the learning lab at MIW where students, regardless of their plan, are able to access their academic needs, or co-teaching at our middle level and being able to access both a special educator and a regular educator. Similarly, at the high school, the RTI labs and co-teaching that are in place. So really ensuring that there are non-categorical supports across the grade levels to capture all of our learners.
Do you want to take questions now or wait till we're done?
Either way. Maybe
Is
wait till
there-
we're done.
I guess it didn't. Another site improvement goal for this year is our review of our literacy program K-8, and we're calling that a literacy audit. The goal there is to ask for to what degree is our program aligned with standards. We want to analyze the curriculum to see if it's aligned and has any gaps or repetitions. We want to pursue a study of classroom practice and understand what research-based practices people feel comfortable with and where they'd identify for more professional development. And we'll want to take a look at the assessments that we use. And so we have got a team of people across our schools, and we had our first meeting a couple weeks ago. So we have a literacy review process that should take us through the year. It'll primarily focus on reading. If we can, we'll get to writing, and I expect by the end of the year, there'll be a report for public consumption and findings for areas where we have strong evidence and where we have goals for improvement.
Who comprises the committee?
Oh, great question. We have our K-8 administrators have put it in their schedule, so they're as part of each one. We have literacy teacher leaders from each of our schools, our RTI staff in some schools. We have our literacy folks play different roles in the schools. So for instance, Teresa Foley and Alyssa Robbins are the folks at MIW, Angela Campbell's at 4-5, and Marsha Fitzpatrick is at 6-8. We have a couple of literacy teacher leaders who are joining us from 4-5. Special educators, Julie, can you help me name all of them? Speech and language, our literacy integration person.
Yeah, resource room case managers who are providing direct instruction to students.
So the team is about 15 to 18 people, and Joan Guile at the high school. We're very grateful to have her.
Deborah representing K-12.
The administrators don't stay for the entire day, but they are there for part of the time. So our team is at largest at 19 and then kind of shrinks down to 14, 15 for some of the work. And the expectation is that these folks will go back to the school with the tools that we develop and conduct some of the study with their colleagues. So that's our literacy review. Another area where we're working on is really trying to increase our understanding of our interconnectedness. And we're calling the big idea collective efficacy. And it is starting with trying to share with folks the views of our curriculum and our school programming for a subject area cross-level. So we talk about vertical progressions of learning, and this will be one of the first years where we'll have the capacity to share that kind of information with staff to help them think more broadly and deeply about the curriculum that they offer. So we have learning walks where our administrators are having the opportunity at several different times in the year to go in and visit classrooms. We have the information now able to share and make use of, and we see that there will be advancements in those areas. And then the last area where we have a goal that is really new improvement work is we're talking about attendance in the school calendar. And I think a little later on this evening, I'll speak a little more again about attendance, but I think it's fair to say that in general, we know that instruction works, and when students are present, we are most successful with them. And as we've been analyzing our data, and as the state and federal government is bringing forward new guidelines for how to look at attendance, it becomes increasingly clear, and the research is clear, that if you do not make any changes in your behavior, you can pretty much predict next year's attendance patterns. And some of our current attendance patterns are problematic. So we have work in each of our schools that's been guided by the Count Me In statewide grant, which is based on research, and I'm happy to put together some resources after this evening for your review. But the idea is that we need to communicate about the importance of attendance. We need to make sure that we're not sending mixed messages about our preference that students come and attend school. I think in each of our schools, we approach student attendance in ways that is most currently driven by the research, that it starts with relationships, and it really starts with that positive messaging about the value of having each student attend. Did you have a question, Gigi? Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you bringing the attendance issue, or reiterating the attendance issue. Are our numbers off relative to other main schools? Are we higher?
Given the, sorry, I keep having some feedback.
No,
I could
we
just-
got to do something about
yeah.
this reverberation. It's like a weird, it's like a tough note out there.
Pull the mic a little bit closer. I might be able to.
Let's see if that doesn't torture you. Is that
No,
better?
it's fantastic. No, I'm sorry to be so
I'm
crazy.
not
I was like
moving.
twitching with
Okay,
it.
I'm not moving. In the way that we've been asked to calculate attendance in the past,
Yeah.
our data has been just fine, and that's based on average daily attendance. And this is really stealing my thunder. We'll just give
I'm
the other
sorry,
per-
I
no,
didn't-
no,
I
no,
didn't wanna jump
know.
out.
Oh, no, I'm laughing going, now you don't have to ask me to come back up again, okay? Just what the new measure is that the federal government will be using to measure our school success is chronic absenteeism. And so it's a new way of looking at student attendance at the individual student level. And what it asks is any student, for any reason, absent for 10% or more of the school year they attend is by definition chronic absenteeism. And so that's a really significant measure for us. It will become part of our ESSA report cards that we'll be receiving in January. Just want to make the comment right now to the public, I can't help it. We're being asked to, we're going to have these report cards and it's going to share last year's data. We still do not have last year's student achievement data to work with. But these reports will be coming out mid-year about last year, and we'll get to see the data at the same time. The punchline is that chronic absenteeism from last year is one of the measures for each of the schools. And yes, we have some concerns at some of our schools that while average daily attendance look fine, we are well above the percentage acceptable for chronic absenteeism in our school.
Okay, I get it.
And so that's where the whole conversations about importance of anyway, there's more to come, but,
Oh, that's interesting. Okay, good. Well, thank you. I don't want to steal the thunder.
well, it's kind of it anyway.
No, we want more thunder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not that kind, though.
Are we good? Any
Could
other
we-
questions for us?
Yeah, can we just walk it back to the non-categorical supports? So I think, so that's RTI, correct?
Yes.
Or, so I just have a couple questions of, what's the qualifier and how do we feel like we're doing in terms of at each building?
Yeah, so it is RTI, but it is also special education, 504, ELL, GT. It's really about providing support to all of our learners, regardless of what plan or document
Okay.
they might be on, and trying to remove those walls or barriers to students accessing support just because they have a certain piece of paper, right? So it is about providing, and the systems of support and the non-categorical really speak to one another in that it's about providing our educators the professional development, the training, and the resources that they need to feel prepared to really work with any student that enters into the program or classroom. I would really speak strongly, and certainly I know some of you were part of the presentation at the end of last year that I did, as well as the year before, but we really have data over a couple of years now showing that some of our non-categorical structures that we've put in place, such as the Learning Lab at MIW and co-teaching at the middle level, are the two places that we really have a couple of years of data now to show that student achievement is increasing due to the supports that we've put in place. And we really are focusing a lot of that data on our regular ed learners who might have not had the same opportunity to access what would have been considered a special ed curriculum prior to some of these structures put in place. And we've seen that students are really increasing in their growth and development based on those structures. And we're trying to, through this SIP goal and our locking arms, continue to really provide the structures, the supports, the training, the professional development, the resources for educators globally to have what they need to creatively think about and pair and match students regardless of a plan, and let us sort of worry about which document it falls on.
Okay. So, for like board members, for the public, so a student who's struggling to read, isn't diagnosed with like a learning disability formally, they can still access support services. That's what non-categorical support is, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
and I mean, to drill down even deeper, it may have been that a student who did have an identified disability under the state of Maine regulations was accessing something like a Wilson reading program, and
Yep.
that the people who were trained to implement Wilson reading were always special educators in the past. We now have regular educators who are trained and have the resources of Wilson reading, and so that child didn't have to meet the state of Maine criteria as having a disability. They can still access reading. So that we're trying to really expand reading, writing, math, and behavior across the board so that students have access to those resources.
I think it's really important work that we're doing, and I think it makes all the difference for our students. Any other?
Yeah, I just have one question about that. It sounds spectacular. Are you finding that are the students seeking the additional support if they're non-categorical, or are they being identified as there's an opportunity to get better?
Interesting. They are being identified primarily through the structures and support that we've put in place with their classroom teachers in the RTI process, or through some sort of other learning plan, like they're an English language learner, or they have a 504 plan or an IEP, and we're grouping and regrouping students based upon what their individual areas of needs are across the district, rather than looking at students with an IEP need to be placed together or students with RTI. At this point, we're not having students individually choose to go access those learning labs at our elementary levels. At the high school level, students do have more access to come in and out of the learning labs and self-advocate for some of those needs, as well as being scheduled in to learning labs if they're requiring that level of intervention.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Can I ask a quick, you might have told, given this either now or in the past, so what total percentage of kids are accessing both special ed and then these non-categorical? Any given year?
So I can speak to special education. We have about 14.6% of our population who is identified as requiring an IEP. We have an additional approximately 14% that access either a medical or an academic 504. The numbers that we don't have as cleanly as RTI, because there is a tier 1, a tier 2, and a tier 3, and students are ebbing and flowing by the day in and out of those programs.
And however, statistically, to put a number on it, the way the RTI model works is that 80% of your students should be successful in your core program, or with what we call tier 1 interventions that are provided in the classroom by the regular classroom teachers. So the quick math on that would be 400 at tier 2, tier 3. It is expected in many cases that tier 2 is also addressed in the regular classroom.
Got it.
And I just have one other quick question. So I know, like, after talking with a school board colleague at a different district very similar to this in the state, so they identify student for non-categorical supports by, I believe we call it like iReady testing. So they'll take the percentages of students. The lowest 10% get a certain level of support. And I think they break it down by like 30% intervals. And so they identify student needs that don't fall under, an IEP through that testing. Do we use our iReady for that type of data?
One of the hallmarks for RTI is to ensure no one falls through the cracks, and that is done by screening 2 to 3 times a year, 100% of your population for a reading assessment, a math assessment, and we're working on writing and we do screen for behavior 3 times a year.
Okay,
So,
good.
so that's how we identify.
And we're using that data to triangulate it with other classroom assessments, district
Okay.
assessments, and then for students who require more individualized assessments like standardized measures, using that as part of a data set.
Great. All right, thank you. Anyone else?
Thank you very much, that's great.
And this is Scott's portion of the presentation.
Sally and Julie are tough to follow, teaching and learning. I love it. So, all right, for the site improvement plan for finance, HR, and operations, the area of finance, what we're going to be looking at is working with budget development with the superintendent and finance committee on the structure of the budget, some of the budget assumptions that we'll be talking about this year, trends, our debt service schedule, taking a look at when debt's retiring, and what might be the appropriate time to maybe look at taking on additional debt if we have to deal with space needs. And also looking at further areas of efficiencies, all of this work to the end to get to, as we know, a successful budget vote at the end of the day. In operations, last meeting we did a presentation of all the things that had happened over the course of the summer, so you got a good opportunity to take a look at what was part of the site improvement plan in that area. But it's also working with the facilities committee this year, and also with the elementary ed committee that's being formed in the spring to take a look at configuration in the district. And with facilities, and that'll all be around space needs in the district, and then also working with facilities to update our 5-year capital improvement plan, and taking a look at how do we address issues around our aging infrastructure. Also taking a look with the new Greeley Center for the Arts, a review of the use of facilities policy and how we're going to deal with that, and rolling in maybe some of our other use of facilities policies as we're taking a look at that one. Serving on the safety committee to include the evacuation that's coming up this Friday and also address safety plans across the district long-term. One of the other areas of operation that's come under operations this year is with the change in the Greeley High School administration. We've taken the athletic director and moved that position underneath the operations area of the district down at the central office. So I'm sure that I foresee some work in athletics and also to include me working with the athletic advisory committee as well. So that's one of the changes that we've made this year. Finally, in human resources, the work will include working with the wellness committee around initiatives and taking a look at space and under employee resources, taking a look at what resources are available to employees around supporting the wellness initiative in the strategic plan. So those are the things that are happening in finance, operations, and HR. So again, you guys are a tough act to follow. So I don't know if anybody has any questions?
Questions?
Perfect. No.
You said it so fast. I'm trying to process it all.
Okay.
You said under HR you're looking at working with a wellness committee, space and resources. Can you say what you mean about space?
Well, in HR, there's the wellness committee that's gonna, depending on what comes out of that wellness committee, there's some space issues that might have to be addressed with whatever we do out of that wellness committee long term. So there's been discussions around cardio areas. There's been discussions, about that, and it all falls into what we're gonna do here at Greeley High School when, we move into the new Greeley Center for the Arts. There's spaces within the district that will become available. So, what do we do with the art area? What do we do with, the existing Geiger gym area where band and chorus, or the commons area? Taking a look at that as well and what happens with that in the cafeteria and other areas. So, so that's what I was referring to.
That
Okay,
makes
so
sense.
yeah, there's obviously some things there that when it gets down the path a little bit further in that wellness plan, there's conceivably some space issues we need to talk about.
All right, thank you.
I have a question about, you mentioned something about the athletic director.
Yes.
Can you say that again? Because I didn't say it.
Yeah, the athletic director was reporting to the high school administration under the previous administration that we had. With the change of the two new administrators that we've had at the high school, it made sense because in a lot of districts, actually in most districts even surround us, the athletic director is under the auspice of the central office and falls under operations. So that was the time in which we decided to make that change.
Okay.
Will that affect our cost centers?
Yeah, that's my next question.
No, because
So it'll stay
athletics
in the
will still
same-
be the
okay.
same, and it's where you put them underneath
Okay.
there, yeah. So it won't have anything to do with where we're budgeting things.
Okay.
Comment, not question. Thank you. Thanks for, I know, we've worked closely for a long time, but it's, again, you're able to put it into a snapshot so it maybe doesn't depict how much depth and thought and leadership and really all three of you have done on your various areas. We're very, very lucky to have you. And so thank you for all your hard work for this.
Great, thanks.
I think we could easily have 3 people up here giving 3 presentations of the work that you do, Scott, and the fact
thank
that
you.
we have one person that's doing all of that is pretty remarkable.
Great, thank you. It's all to support teaching and learning, right? Okay.
Thanks so much, Scott.
Thanks.
All right, and so our next item is our superintendent's report.
Yes. First, I'd like to just remind our board tonight that we have a joint workshop with the Cumberland Town Council and the North Yarmouth Board of Selectmen on October 15th at 6 o'clock. And we are probably going to need to change the location. Originally, it was going to be in this room on October 15th. And I met with Bill Shane and Rosemary Roy today. And we might be making a location change down to Valhalla, but I need to confirm it. So we will certainly let you know if that changes or not. But I just want to remind you, we do have a joint workshop in 2 weeks with the other 2 governing boards in our communities. Thank you to our athletic advertisers. Every year we have athletic advertisers. These are business folks in our community, individuals in our community who raise money and support our athletic programs in our district. And I'd like to just take a minute to just thank all of these folks. Praise Hardscapes, Terry Snow, Portland Sand and Gravel, Atlantic Physical Therapy, BEU, Allstate, RW Guggens Electric, Chrisman Pool Service, Lee Auto Group, Averill Insurance, Lobster Shack, Colwell Banker, Northeast Test Consultants, Portland Glass, Graphic Signs, Restorative and Aesthetic Dental Associates, Friends in Home Care, Rachel's on the Green, Invisible Fence of Southern Maine, Stephen Blatt Architects, MSCD 51 Education Association, thank you, and Park and Jet. So we still have a few spots left on the press box and the pool. If you're interested in advertising, please contact Eliza Miller, who's the chair of our athletic advisory board, at enm@maine.rr.com. But we are very pleased and very happy that we have such great support for our athletic programming, and we're pleased to advertise those businesses as we have. We had an author come visit the middle school and work with our 5th and 6th graders. Actually, our principals put that out on social media last week. It was a really engaging presentation. I was able to give her for a few minutes. But it's children's author Dan Guyman-Hart. And I'd like to thank Mrs. Dorothy Hall Riddle at the middle school library, as well as the Greeley PTO for making the visit possible. It was he's just a great speaker and really connected with the students. And I really talked about the idea of continuing to try, even when you fail. He had tried 99 times to get a book published. And on the 100th time, he actually, with a different book, got it published and never gave up. So I think that's pretty exciting, and I think that message really resonated with our students. October is Substance Use Prevention Month. Can you believe it's October 1st? I couldn't believe it when I looked at the calendar. October is here, and it's Substance Use Prevention Month. Our partners at Casco Bay Can share tips and have been working a lot with us over the last few years in helping us understand why students use substances and what we can do to prevent that. And in my blog tomorrow, I'll have some facts for parents around e-cigarette and vaping, and just what every parent should know. And this comes from Casco Bay Can, and we appreciate them passing along this information and helping us all be educated in this very important area. On Friday, October 5th, which is a staff and service day, a staff professional learning day, we're going to be spending a couple hours in the afternoon on Friday doing a district-wide evacuation without our students on campus. And that's to help train our staff around what would we do if we needed to evacuate our entire campus. And this is an important piece because we're all one campus, and having a district plan on doing that will be very important. We have a safety committee, which is comprised of several administrators on our leadership team, as well as the Teachers Association. Joan Guile is on there. We have a couple board members. Actually, one board member. I always say a couple board members. Mike Simmons. What? No, Mike Brown. Sorry, the mics have changed. As well as the chief of police and the chief of the fire department. So we appreciate all their help. And Friday we will have a first ever campus-wide staff evacuation. So if you see some atypical activity in the afternoon around the campus or around Main Street, Blanchard Road, Tuttle Road, you'll know what's going on. Just a drill. And congratulations to Mia Rico. She was recently recognized as a National Hispanic Scholar. Mia scored in the top 2.5% among Hispanic and Latino PSAT test takers in our region. And she'll be able to highlight her outstanding educational 10th grade PSAT achievement to any college that she applies to. And last but not least, I'd like to see if Sally has any more to say about attendance. I believe she does.
I just wanted to start the work in this goal this year by speaking with the board because I think it's an opportunity to re-communicate some of potentially the messages that people have heard or internalized about the importance of attendance. We enjoy in our community the opportunity for students, many students, to do a planned absence. And, I just am holding out my hands for balancing, because I absolutely am not here to tell any family that that's unacceptable or that we, don't want it to happen. What we do want families to think about is the balancing act of their students' absence and that concern that there's a threshold of approximately 2 absences per month would add up for a school year to be that 10% of a student's lost time. So, I think it's just important to begin the conversation. I think I've already mentioned about the federal measure being changed to chronic absenteeism, and that we are not in the right place in some of our schools. And just to inform you that this year we'll be working with the schools and the planned absence form to make sure that it's not miscommunicating. It's certainly something where if a teacher has work available for a child who's on a planned absence, there's absolutely no interest in withholding that. It's just sometimes the teachers have felt pressured to furnish work, and folks going on trips have thought that this replaced instruction. And so just want to take a look at some of our communication tools that we have and be really clear with families that attendance patterns start in elementary school, that we do need children here for instruction, and that when families do make these plans, which they will make, and I hope that they will see me on the street and not think they have to pass me by, that the plans that we assist with are not to replace instruction, and that when students come back, it will be then that they are expected to make up the bulk of what they've missed. And so just, I have heard folks feeling that we give the green light and that these are excused absences and that this is absolutely part of our DNA. And I'm here to say, I think we have to hold up the statistics that we're very good at instructing the students that can come, that being in school is essential, and that, we just want folks to be very aware of this new message. So hopefully I did that in a friendly and even tone and just kind of signaled you that this is going to be work that we work on in the schools this year, and just wanted to start with the board and the public to start the conversation. I'm not sure if there's anything else. Nailed it, right? Okay.
Thank you, Sally. And does anyone have any comments? I mean, I think starting with communicating to the board is a good thing, because often we're kind of, not cheerleaders, but we kind of echo the work that the district is doing, we echo to the community. So I think this is a good place to start, and let us know how we can support you. All right, so do you have more? Oh.
No, I don't.
Oh,
No.
okay. I didn't know if you had more to your report. So public comment? I don't see anyone for that, so we'll move on to our committee reports. Thank you. All right, we'll start with finance.
Yeah, hi. We have our first committee meeting of the school year tomorrow morning, bright and early at 8:15. We'll be hearing from Scott a little bit about an update on capital reserves and salaries and benefits. Anybody's welcome.
Policy.
We had our first official meeting this evening. Spectacular time with everybody on the committee. We worked on a few different policies, one of which requires some additional work before we bring it for reading, and the other one we're in fairly good stead, so we'll keep you informed as we move forward.
Curriculum?
We have our first meeting on Thursday at 8 a.m. We're going to be reviewing the NEASC visit and meeting. Chris Hoffman will be joining us on the first meeting, and then kind of doing an overview for the year.
Great. Negotiations, Scott, anything on that front?
Yes, we've received a letter of intent from the association to bargain the social workers.
Right.
So that's the latest update on that, and then we'll be meeting a little bit later, probably in a couple of board meetings, to talk about the secretary and intent negotiations.
Okay. And facilities.
Facilities will be meeting for the first time on Wednesday morning at 8:15. It's a full and packed agenda. I know a lot of people are pretty excited about that. We've actually scheduled it for an extended 90-minute block, and all are welcome.
Environmental stewardship.
We have our first meeting next Wednesday on the 10th at 3 p.m. both of these ladies will be on the committee this year, so it's great to have some students
Excellent.
with us. I did want to share that we applied for a grant last year for agricultural awareness in the classroom, and we learned about a month ago, I haven't had a report, so I haven't been able to share that. We did win a $3,000 grant that is going to Steve Schaefer in the Alternative Pathways program, and he's going to be using that to start an aquaponics system in the classroom.
Student reports.
So we have a 4-day weekend coming up starting on Thursday. And we also have a homecoming dance, which is next Saturday. So should be
Kara?
Um, I would just add that next week, I think it's on the October 10th, we also have the PSATs. So,
Oh, good luck, everybody.
thank you.
All right, so we have no communication, so we are going to move into our workshop for this portion of our meeting.